flights themselves. They were both scheduled to take off earlier than they did. TWA Flight 2 was scheduled to take off at 8:30, and 8:45 is when 718 was supposed to take off. There were, according to the accident report, delays for routine maintenance for Flight 2. There was never any real reason given why 718 was late taking off, but again, this was the weekend before 4th of July holiday, and LAX, even in those days, was a very busy place, so routine congestion is a good bet. They were scheduled to both head back east. TWA Flight 2 was heading back to Kansas City, again, TWA's headquarters in those days. Then it was going on to St. Louis and eventually going to Washington, D.C. At that point, the remainder of the flight into Baltimore would have continued on the equivalent of a commuter aircraft, a smaller aircraft from that point. And United Flight 718, the flight itself, in addition to the plane, had a name. It was called the Hollywood. And it was going to Chicago, Detroit, then back to Philadelphia, and eventually on to New York, the New York area's Newark Airport. TWA-2 actually took off at 9:01. United 718 took off 3 minutes later at 9:04. These are their flight plans. TWA was scheduled to head out and go up this way and then come back down this way. Start a little north, in other words, of the United flight path, and then cut down a little south. United is the blue. They were scheduled, again, to make the other side of that little diamond shape, head down over Palm Springs, and then come back up north. They were both scheduled to pass well to the east and a little bit to the south of the Grand Canyon initially. And again, another one of those little facts to hang on to for later. TWA was supposed to fly at 19,000 feet at a speed of 310 miles an hour. United was supposed to fly a little bit higher and just a little bit faster. They were going to be at 21,000 feet at 330 miles an hour. So even though the United plane took off last, they would at some point overtake the TWA aircraft. At 9:21, 20 minutes after departure, TWA Flight 2 was over Daggett, which is, for folks that are familiar with California, a little bitty area outside of Barstow, California. He requested, Captain Gandy of TWA did, a altitude increase to 21,000 feet because there was an increase in cloud cover from that point east, and he wanted to get on top of the weather. In those days, there was no direct communication between the aircraft crew and the air traffic controllers. What happened was either, as in the case of TWA, there was a TWA radio organization that the pilots talked to, and then those folks talked to the air traffic controllers. Or in the case of United, they had a contract service to do this, the same thing. When Captain Gandy made this request, it was passed to his company dispatch. They passed it on to, at this point, Los Angeles, who actually passed it on to Salt Lake City Air Traffic Control because they were heading into their area. And Salt Lake City said, no, we've got United going to be in that same general area at about that same general time. We're going to deny that request. This was passed on somewhat to Captain Gandy. He was told that his clearance was denied for the change to this altitude. He was not given specific reasons why. He was told, according to the controllers later on, that his traffic was United 718, but that was about all the information that he actually got. Captain Gandy at that point made another very common request for those days, which was for clearance to go 1,000 feet on top of the weather, which would have been 1,000 feet above the highest cloud cover in his path. After, again, this game of post office between the various folks on the radio, this request was approved after it was determined that he was already at least 1,000 feet above the cloud tops, which were, again, getting higher and higher back as you went further east. So, United 718 is at 21,000. Captain Gandy is 1,000 feet on top of the clouds, wherever that might be at this point. This is his check-in, Captain Gandy's first check-in point here over Daggett. Now, we have United reporting in over Palm Springs, and he reports in at 9:37. And again, the way this worked, as Bill mentioned, is that when you were out off of the airways or out away from radar coverage, the air traffic controllers relied on position reports from the pilots. So they would report in over a given point, and then they would estimate when they would be over their next calling point. And in this case, it would be Reunited Needles would be the next position coming up. Now, TWA Flight 2, about a half an hour after its last call-in over Daggett, called in over Lake Mojave, Arizona, just over the border from California and from Nevada, actually. And he estimated the painted line, desert line of position at 10:31. And this is going to be important a little bit later on. Just for the folks that are tracking this kind of thing here, the times given here are the California times, so it's actually an hour later here. So what he was saying is that at 11:31 Arizona time or Mountain Time, he would be over the painted desert line of position, and we'll talk about what that is in just a sec. Over Needles, meantime, UAL 718 reports in, and they also report they're going to be over that painted desert line of position at 10:31 at the same time and the same general place as the TWA aircraft. What this painted desert line of position is all about is back in those days, a lot of the navigation was done by radio beacon. There would be a directional signal, and you would keep track of what direction that beacon was in relation to your aircraft, and you could check a couple of these, among other things, and you could figure out where you were at. So there was a beacon outside of Winslow, Omni-Range radio station, and the 321-degree line, in other words, this yellow line right over here in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, that ran kind of north-west, southeast. That was the 321-degree radial. It was a 50-mile-long line for navigational purposes. So what these two planes were saying is that they were both going to be somewhere within 50 miles of each other, basically, at this point. Although the air traffic controllers, again, if they had plotted it out, they'd be able to see that they were actually, their paths would pretty much cross right at this point. At 10:31, neither aircraft reported in. There was at Salt Lake Air Traffic Control, whose area this was in, there was a garbled radio transmission received, but no one could really make it out. It was recorded, and later on that there was some more information gotten out of that, but at the time it was just a jumble. There was no word from either aircraft, and the controllers started to get worried. They started contacting the company dispatches and trying the aircraft on a bunch of different frequencies. They even contacted Denver Air Defense Command, which had pretty much the nearest radar coverage to this area here at the Grand Canyon in those days. And they said, both of these planes are overdue. If you paint either one of them on your radar, please let us know. After an hour and 20 minutes, where they had no luck in contacting either of these aircraft, they declared both of them missing and launched a major search. There were search and rescue units from 6 different states converging on northern Arizona looking for these aircraft at this point. And because both aircraft were expected to be over that painted desert line of position, the search was initially to the south and to the east of the Grand Canyon areas where they started looking. The Marble Canyon painted desert area, where these two flight paths should have been crossed, was the initial target. The search was based out of Winslow, and in fact, Captain Bert Ryland of the United States Air Force was in charge of the initial search and rescue efforts. He was part of a unit based out of March Air Force Base in Riverside, California, and his unit was scheduled to be disbanded and relocated as of July 1st. So as of midnight tonight, 50 years ago, his unit was scheduled to cease to exist, and in fact it ended up being kept in existence for some time afterwards to work on this crash. In Tuba City, out in the painted desert, what was expected to be the nearest hospital, they started calling in personnel and getting ready just in case there were people injured from either of these aircraft. And at the airports, all back east, Kansas City, St. Louis, Chicago, Detroit, there were family members waiting for these aircraft to arrive. And about the same time, the airlines started announcing that these aircraft were overdue and presumed missing.